Doomed is an excellent episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer that gets let down by its last few minutes. It helps push along a number of major storylines and manages to balance the three main characters well, with a plot that is well trodden but also well executed. It begins right where the last episode left off, with Riley and Buffy unable to speak to each other, having collectively discovered the other is a supernatural combatant. Riley ends up breaking the silence first, after getting up and pacing uncomfortably. He begins with a fairly rude question of what are you? It's somewhat ironic that question is something Buffy deals with on a number of different occasions internally. She is a Slayer, but what exactly does that mean? A number of different episodes focus on this, although the one which is most prominent is next season's intervention. Of course, being asked that in this case merely causes Buffy to snark, avoiding the difficult conversation. Both parties have lied to each other about a significant part of their lives, but their reactions couldn't be more different. Riley is inquisitive and seemingly turned on by the idea that they can fight monsters together, whereas Buffy wants a relationship separate from her work. Riley lying brings back memories of all of her struggles with Angel, and how intertwined their lives were, and how complicated that was. What Buffy wanted out of her relationship was for someone to love her, and have an escape, a release from the life and death struggles that she put up with every day. In the end, she doesn't really love Riley, but she appreciates his company and likes being with him, although sometimes that's not enough. As the title of the episode indicates, however, their relationship was doomed from the start because it was founded on lies. Even once those are revealed, Riley is still unable to tell her everything, and regardless, them being together and fighting monsters simply doesn't work. Their conversation ends, and then there is an earthquake. As Giles says, not an uncommon occurrence in Southern California, but the last time one happened, the Master rose and Buffy died. Not for long, but it's still an event that sticks with you. Bringing that back 3 seasons later helps with the thematic components of the episode, as it's a reminder of the peril that Buffy has to deal with every day. We then cut to Spike and Xander and establish that their dynamic has continued, with Xander still feeling somewhat lost in life and Spike being depressed. This ultimately culminates with Spike trying to stake himself, in a scene that is both amusing and tragic. It also forces Spike to stay with the group at the end, and this is a good plot reason for him sticking around, whereas otherwise he is just a hindrance. Meanwhile, at the military base, Riley has to ask about what a Slayer is from Forrest, who is clearly in love with Riley, being affronted at the mention of Buffy. We also see Riley in action, helping to wrangle a demon, which helps demonstrate his competency after he's taken a few beatings in the last few episodes. Willow's small arc this episode begins at a party, in response to the earthquake. She sees Percy, which is another nice callback. The episode is partially about moving on from the past, while acknowledging the events that led up to the future. Percy calls Willow a nerd to the girl he's dating, and Willow retreats rather than confront him. Of course she lives in Sunnydale, so when she does so she encounters a bloody body richly scarred. Police arrive and everyone goes into investigation mode. It's also notable that Willow is more annoyed by the nerd comment than the fatality, but this represents what early adolescence is about, where personal insults or problems are a bigger deal than tragedies or the apocalypse. Buffy was once again right about this, as it is the end of the world, with a sect of demons out collecting MacGuffins. This is maybe the 6th or 7th apocalypse the group have encountered, so it's somewhat of an old hat. Buffy remembers the sigil on the dead man from her nightly excursions in the cemetery, and confronts a demon there. More importantly though, she confronts Riley, who insists they try to work things out. He doesn't take no for an answer, but eventually Buffy leaves. There are then parallel sequences between the Initiative and the Scooby Gang, similar to the last episode, but with more talking. It also shows the difference in experience, as the government has provided all the same information, but comes to the wrong conclusion. Riley and Buffy have another fight, this time on the streets of Sunnydale. He negs her, calling her stupid and self-involved, and is quite upset that she won't just give him a chance. He also calls fighting for the Initiative fun and exciting, which is about the worst thing to say to Buffy, who cannot escape from her destiny, whereas Riley is doing it as a hobby. Again, Buffy rejects him, and Riley doesn't accept it. Spike, Xander, and Willow are on their own little adventure, and he does a rundown of their lives, reinforcing the earlier scene with Percy, saying they haven't changed. This isn't true, but it's easy to get in that reductive mindset, and both characters are still trying to find their identity. That will come soon, with Willow coming out of the closet, and Xander becoming closer to Anya, but for now they have to return to their old high school, all charred and exploded, to go to the Hellmouth. Amusingly, Giles gets knocked out yet again, and it turns out that he had the MacGuffin the entire time, picking it up at an estate sale. This is not the first time that's happened, and it's a great running gag that he has deadly and ancient artifacts just lying around. It also makes sense that he eventually buys the magic box to house all the arcane junk. After they go back to school, they fight the demons, but it looks like they've lost when Riley arrives, and ignoring physics, Buffy grabs onto his little rope thingy and saves the day. Riley then fails miserably about explaining his presence to the gang, while Spike puts on a terrible American accent. This scene is a little bit cringy, but fits with Riley's overall personality. The real problem is in the next scene, when Buffy heads to Riley's room and decides that everything he had said managed to convince her to try a relationship. I understand there are limited episodes, and they only recently got together for the first time, but given everything they've said in this episode, and Buffy's history, it doesn't make sense she would forgive him so quickly. Thematically, it's alright, as the episode is about moving on from the past with the earthquakes, the nerd comment, and Spike's newfound desire to fight demons, but it's just not believable, especially as their last serious conversation had Riley insulting Buffy. Most of the episode is so good, it's just a shame that right at the end it goes back to the standard sitcom bits, where the relationship is fixed immediately instead of letting the characters have time to heal. That's just my opinion, however, and I'd love to hear what other people have to say. As always, be well.